That's what it's all about. And some people can't handle that. And maybe team sport's not for you. But ultimately, it is about a coach, your teammates, trying to attain whatever goal is that your team put forth for you. And that's what it's all about.
Hey team, it's Katie, and welcome to the Kick It with Katie podcast. This is episode 17, and it's going to feature my interview with Matt Walbruch. You heard from Matt's eldest daughter, Ellie, in a prior episode, and if you haven't listened to that yet, go back and listen to it. She is currently a collegiate athlete at BYU. She was formerly at UCLA. Talented young player, great story. Go give it a listen. But today's episode with Matt, his interview covers all aspects of soccer. His youth career, growing up as a player, becoming a parent, introducing his kids to the sport, coaching, and now as a parent whose kids are kind of weaning out of it. They're at that collegiate level and transitioning out of the youth into the older ages, and then kind of where he's going with that, with his new venture with personal training. You'll be able to hear all about that and everything in the episode. So give it a listen. Keep listening. You're already here. But I do want to say I'm super excited. Go follow me on Instagram, Kick It with Katie podcast _ between all the words. Link is in the show notes as always. But I am going to be doing a giveaway this weekend in April. I've got merch coming. It's on its way. It was shipped. It's on its way. I'm super excited. I'm having shirts coming in and stickers. So I've got my first round of merch. So if there's a big you guys want it and everything, then I can always order more. But this is just the first round of merch. So I'm super excited about it. As a new podcaster, it's super exciting on my end. You guys probably aren't as excited as I am, but I'm super excited because I'm loving this podcast and where it's going. And thank you as the listener, because I do it for you. So I'm wanting to get this information out, the stories out, people's journeys out, so that you as the listener can learn from their experiences, pass it on, share it, all the things. So this is for you. So I will be doing a giveaway for you as the listener. Just make sure you're following me on Instagram so you can be a part of the giveaway. And yeah, I'm super excited about it. Hope you are too. I mean, who doesn't want a free shirt? I mean, it's awesome to get free stuff. So you want a free shirt? Go follow me on Instagram. Give me a 5-star review if you like the episode today or prior episodes. If you haven't already given me a review, give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Share it. Make sure you subscribe because it really helps out the show. So I'm really excited with where it's going. You guys have been great. Thank you for the feedback. I love it. And let's keep going. Let's keep trucking. And if you are a player, a parent, a coach, a referee, anything that has anything to do with soccer, I want to hear from you and I want to interview you. So I've got a few more interviews lined up that I'm really excited about. I just did an amazing interview with a sports social worker, and so like sports psychology, and we probably could have talked for hours and hours and hours. And I'm going to be releasing her episode next week. Super excited. Her name is Tiffany Turner. She's out of Michigan. Love it. I really enjoyed that interview with her, so I'm really excited to share that. But I am looking for all aspects of people in soccer to give interviews for. So I'm going to be interviewing somebody that has to do with refereeing and more coaching and more players. So I'm really excited. So the college season is kind of winding down for some people, and certain people's schedules are starting to open up. So I'm going to be getting a few more of those kind of players that I know many of you want to hear from. And since their seasons are kind of ending, I mean, mine is just starting. So my spring season, it's like we've had our second game and it's already mid-April, and we should have had at least half our season by now. But as I've said before in prior episodes, we've had snow, it's rained, games have been canceled because fields are flooded and whatever. So it's been absolutely crazy, and we're trying to squeeze basically 8 to 10 weeks of games into like 6 weeks. So it's crazy. This week I have like 4 games in 5 days for my girls' teams. So it's nuts. It's crazy. You guys, it's crazy. So if you have a story and you can relate, send me an email, kickitwithkatiepod. I want to hear from you. What is going on in your neck of the woods with youth soccer? Is your spring season as crazy as mine? We're also gearing up for Spring State Cup here, which is going to happen in about a month. That's going to be nuts as well. In May, I may need to take a couple weeks off because it's going to be crazy, but we'll see if I can get enough episodes edited before. Hopefully I don't have to take that break, but it is going to be a little bit crazy. But I am super excited where we're going, and I love you guys, and I'm really excited about Matt's interview today. We had a great conversation as well. Great interview. He's another one that we probably could have just kept going on and on and on about different aspects of soccer. So especially because he's so knowledgeable, he's been around it for a long time. Here is my interview with Matt Walbruch. Hey guys, it's Katie, and today I have Matt Walbruch with me. And I've known Matt because my husband Justice coached his son Kyle, and I interviewed his daughter. If you've listened to her podcast episode about her experience, so this is her dad. And Matt, why don't you introduce yourself and get into your story of playing and where you are now?
Perfect. Well, my name is Matt Walbruch, as Katie mentioned. I'm a father of 4 children. 3 of them are heavily involved in soccer. And a brief intro to my soccer background is I was born and raised in Germany, lived there for 16 years, played on a German club team, small farm team. I believe I started when I was 6 years old, and then played with our B Jugend, which is like the second tier, until I was about 14. And then I advanced to the A Jugend, which is the top youth team before they get into like semi-pro and pro, for a club called FC Munchweiler, which is right on the French border. Was there till 16, and then my family and I moved to Japan, and I went to high school in Japan, played for a military base team, played for a Japanese team, as well as my high school team. So there's a lot of soccer involved with that. And then as I was getting into my junior and senior year, I this was kind of the start of the internet, and I reached out to many coaches in the U.S., tried to obviously have them come and recruit me, and not a lot of people wanted to come to Japan to recruit an American, so that was very difficult. So I put together a highlight tape, VHS, old school, sent it to a couple coaches, got some interest from Oregon State. He was a big international recruiter, but he more or less was like, hey, you got to come, you got to try out as a walk-on. Which I really like that. I put in all my financial documentation, and Oregon State didn't give me a lot of money. So I opted for option number 2, which is a Division II school in Denver, where my aunt and uncle lived, the University of Denver. And so I had contact with the coach for about 6 months, and he said, oh, you're going to have to try out, come out. This is when we have our season starting, our tryout session in August. And I went there, and that coach had retired. He'd been there for 20-something years. He retired, and I kind of started from scratch. And I met the head coach that just got announced. His name was Chad Ashton, who was a big-time University of North Carolina player, all ACC. He was a local kid from Colorado. He got hired as the first-time coach, never coached a day in his life. But he had an amazing assistant coach who was his father. And so they were announced, and I sat down with him, had a little interview, and they said, hey, welcome to Denver. We're going to have a big tryout. We got 120 kids that are coming here. They had returners. I think they had 12 returning players. They did offer one local kid a scholarship, and they said, we have no money, so if you want to come, you got to try out. We're going to walk on. We're going to keep the best kids. And it was literally 100 degrees, and it was 2 days. And luckily for me, I made the cut. And he ended up he had 12 returners. He got rid of 4 of those returners, and then he kept 12 freshmen, and I was one of those. So walked on, played Division II soccer for a couple years there at Denver. My senior year, they ended up becoming a Division I program, but I ended up leaving the team in between my sophomore and junior year because I just wanted to focus on school, study abroad, and just kind of have fun playing soccer. So that was kind of my end of my college career. I got married to my wife. We lived in Denver for a couple years, had 2 kids, and she convinced me to move to Utah. Um, and brought the 2 kids to Utah, had 2 more kids, and that's kind of when we started getting into youth soccer. My son Kyle played with the Rangers in Utah County, and my daughter Ellie played with Celtic Storm at the time. And I really didn't want to coach. I was kind of adamant. I said, "Hey, I want to be just a dad, sit back, enjoy the game." But then as I watched, specifically Ellie, because Kyle's coaches, they were pretty good. They knew the game. But as I sat back and watched Ellie's coach, I grew frustrated. And he was a great guy, and he did some good things. But I mean, in terms of the next level kind of stuff and technical things, I really struggled with it. Now, at the time, Celtic had a really good academy that was run by Jen Rockwood, the BYU head coach, as well as some of the academy coaches were BYU players. That was pretty good. But then in terms of like Premier One soccer, the coaches weren't that good. And so I just kind of said, if you need help, I'm here to help you. And once you say that, they reel you in. So I got reeled in, assistant coach, and then head coach and I kind of said, hey, one wants to go this way, one wants to go that way. So I took over that team for 4 years. I enjoyed it. But as with youth coaches, it's a thankless job, and there's a lot of struggles and frustrations with parents on the sidelines and thinking they know best and playing time and all this stuff. I was just tired of it. And it was at the time where Ellie was, I think she was 12, and she needed someone else. And so I said, hey, what's the best team in the state? And Ellie said, oh, it's La Roca. I want to play for La Roca. I want to play for this guy, Rolando. And they were in Ogden. And our family decided to go 100% to La Roca on the girl side. And we commuted 45 minutes to an hour, 3 days a week up to La Roca, and really never looked back. And then we're a total La Roca family on the girl side. Kyle went through Rangers, and then he went to Utah Storm for a year, tried that out, and then he went to Sparta with Dami, and then with Marco for a year, and then he found his spot with Justice, and he loved it. He was pushed, and it was no nonsense, and Justice didn't deal with parents, which right on him for not. I think that's the one thing that people are frustrated with Justice, but looking back, he's doing it the right way because it's all about the kids. It has nothing to do with the parents. So then loved everything with La Roca, loved everything with Kyle. And we got really involved with personal training with James Jaramillo, a great friend of ours. He kind of, at my last year at Celtic, he kind of came on as an assistant coach, and the role at the time was he was going to take over the team, but it wasn't the best fit for him. So Ellie went to La Roca. I washed my hands of coaching a U13 P1 team at Celtic, and I kind of hung up my coaching cleats, if you will, and I just became a dad, and I loved it. I love sitting on the sidelines, and I'm a photographer at heart, so I took a lot of photos and a lot of video. Now that VO is here, that's my big call because you can video every game and live stream it. That's kind of my passion now. And then about 4 years ago, my youngest daughter, Avery, she fell into La Roca. And again, when you volunteer your time, I got sucked into an assistant coach role. I'm on the board of La Roca, which pains me, but it is what it is. So, I mean, you kind of find your way when you have a soccer mind and people want to really pick your brain. They want your help. And I think clubs need good helpers. outside of the coaching realm, but really
Mm-hmm.
clubs only pay for coaches, and they only really want coaches because that's kind of who run the clubs. But that being said, there is a need for business-minded people who can just put the soccer aside and say, "Hey, this is in the best interest of the club outside of soccer," because clubs do need money. They need to function financially. They need to really get good coaches and keep good coaches. And if they don't have that, then the boys and girls go elsewhere because
Mm-hmm.
really the clubs and the talent of coaches within the clubs dictate the success of the club. And I know there's a lot of coaches jump ship and jump here and here and here, and it's all monetary. But I mean, I think you find the good coaches stay put and they build a program from little young kids to the U19s, and they're very successful, and the parents believe in it. And I think Justice has done a good job of those, and there's a handful of really good quality coaches that stay put within the club, and they build the club and they make it what it is today. So back to my story today, and my hat. Um, I've trained my son Kyle for now probably 10 years, and my daughter Ellie for about the same amount of time, and I've only really kind of trained them. Um, but as I post videos, people are like, "Oh, can I have my kid come train with your kids?" And I've kind of kept that very secretive to my chest because that's kind of my time with my kids. But
Mm-hmm.
now Kyle's in college playing Division I soccer at Utah Tech, and now Ellie's at BYU. I'm kind of a partial empty nester, if you will. So I have one kid
Mm-hmm.
left, my youngest, who's 12, and she needs training partners. And so I've always had this thought in my head that, hey, James Jaramillo did an amazing job training my kids, and he is a big part of why they are where they are. But as a dad, I think I've done a good job as well training them. And so
Mm-hmm.
after the passing of James Jaramillo, a lot of parents and girls were like, we need someone in Utah County. Matt, you know
Mm-hmm.
what to do. You've done it with your own kids. You found success with that. Put on your trainer hat and start training kids. So I've wanted to do it for a while, but I didn't want to step on James's toes
Mm-hmm.
because he did such a good job. And
Mm-hmm.
when his passing kind of happened, it was like, pull on your trainer pants and do it and really help the kids that want more than just team training and want to reach and try to go as far as they possibly can in Utah or outside of Utah. And that's kind of why the undeniable soccer kind of came to fruition because I have a passion of the game. I'm not the greatest trainer, I'm not the greatest coach, but I think I can really help young boys and girls achieve success um, because my kids did. But a lot of it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to them wanting more and wanting to put in the time, effort, and desire to go as far as they want to go. And I
Mm-hmm.
know there's some trainers around Utah, and many of them are very very good. But a lot of them just are in it for the money, and I'm really in it as this is not my full time job. It's
Mm-hmm.
fun. I love doing it, and I love to see the joys on boys and girls' faces after they're challenged in training and they take what they learned in personal training and they go on the soccer pitch and they say, man, I did all this and look how or what it did for me on the pitch in front of coaches, in front of my teammates, and I'm putting in the work and I can see the results. And that is really heartwarming for me as a father and as a trainer, as a coach, because if you don't have that, it's hard to be very successful in the high caliber soccer realm because yeah, you have good team coaches, but I mean the team coaches really can't focus on the personal technical side of things because
Mm-hmm.
they're focused on 18 or 21 kids. They're not focused on one kid all the time. So I think personal training and team training go hand in hand, and that's a very critical piece that undeniable soccer is gonna help kids get to the next level with their team coaches. So that was a mouthful for you, Katie. I hope I answered a lot of questions, but now you can spit them at me.
Yeah. So with your undeniable training, what do you specifically offer? Do you do one-on-one training, small group training, team training, the whole shebang, all of the above?
So good question. So I mean, individual training is necessary for some kids. Um, Preferably, I think smaller groups of 3 to 6 is like ideal, because then you're challenged against other like-minded kids, and then hey, this girl's doing it really good. I'm gonna emulate what she's doing. I think that's very important, but there are specific things that need to be done on one-on-one. The challenge with one-on-one training is it's not cheap, because you're
Mm-hmm.
focusing on one-on-one. That takes a lot of time out of one person's
Mm-hmm.
balance. And if one kid needs an hour of training, that's more expensive, and a lot of people can't
Mm-hmm.
afford that. And a lot of people, think it's very valuable. I would say it is valuable in certain instances, depending on what the individual athlete needs. But I think smaller group training is ideal. So I do individual one on one. I do small group trainings, between 4 and 12. That seems like a lot, but in the wintertime where the space is at a minimum,
Mm-hmm.
you can't find the space, especially in Utah.
Right.
So that's why I've,
Mm-hmm.
I've said, hey, if we can do 12 kids in a gym that's adequate, I've put together some curriculum and training that we do groups of 3, so 4 groups of 3, and it's high competitive, a lot of touches within that hour, and I've seen the results. First touch is critical. They take it and they go outside, and man, they're that much better. But then I also do a lot of positional training. So a bunch of defenders, outside backs, they need different training than a forward or number 9. So I've done some of those as well, and those are typically like 4 people, but it's really hyper focused on the position you play. So like a center back is going to be different than a number 8 or number 10 as opposed to a number 9. So I've done some of those trainings depending on the need and desire of some of the boys and girls. So I mean, those are things that I'm allowing people to do, and I've built a pretty good um, basis of clients where I'm sending out a weekly email on Sundays, and it usually goes out between 4 and 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday training sessions, and they're completely full by 10 minutes after I release it on Sunday. Again, because we're in the winter and there's only so much time and space.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we're getting into the warmer months, I'm going to open that up. We're going to do some afternoon sessions outside, which are going to be, again, individual and smaller groups, as well as specialized training, which is really going to help those that think they need more additional focused training based on position, based on technical skill, whatever. So I'm kind of I want to say I'm a liaison for people who want more than what they're getting, and they want to push themselves to the next level. A big thing
Mm-hmm.
about personal training is a lot of it is self confidence. There's a lot of kids who, you know, believe in themselves to be good. Then they go to team training and they're not getting what they feel like they need out of team training, or they're maybe middle to bottom of the group, and they need just self confidence. If they
Mm-hmm.
have a trainer who's like, hey, you can do it, you're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort, you're putting in the touches, then I think they can get to that next level, whether it's medium or a high level. But a lot of kids, who doesn't want to play in college? Most of them are like, hey, I want to play in college, I want to go pro. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice. And your coach is only going to do as much as he can or she can, but a lot of it is on the individual kid. If you're not putting
Mm-hmm.
in the time and effort, yeah, you're not going to go pro. I hate to say that, but I mean, you got to sacrifice a lot, and you have to put in your own individual time, plus a personal trainer's time, plus your coach's time. And in the scheme of all that, if you don't perform on the field when people are watching, there's no way you're going anywhere. And I know that's a lot of pressure, but that's the reality of life. You have to
Mm-hmm.
perform when people are watching.
Mm-hmm. It's it's very, very true. You mentioned earlier, and I know we've kind of talked about it before this, but team training and personal training, they work really well together. But I know that there's a lot of players out there who I want to say, over focus on their individual training. And I don't want to say that you can ever like overdo it training on your own, but they don't feel like their team training is as important, but it is a team sport, so it
100%.
obviously has to be very important in team training. So what kind of advice would you have for people that are maybe focusing only on, maybe if they're in a team sport, I would hope that they attend their team trainings, but people that are just training on their own necessarily, and maybe don't want to be, maybe they want to be a TikTok star and that's
Uh-huh.
what they want to do and they want to be a skills person, and that would be great for them. But what advice would you have for those players who are maybe hyper focused on personal training and individual training versus not really taking the team training as seriously?
Yeah, good question. And we talked about it, and I think, like you said, soccer is a team sport. There's no I in team. So you need to be part of a team to be successful. And whether it's high school or college or pro, there's not just one player. There's 11 on the field. There's 18, 20, 24, 35, depending on the roster size. So if you're not in it for the team, then stop playing soccer. And then, yes, like you said, become a TikTok star and do drills and, juggle the world, whatever. That's what you need to focus on. But if you're not attending team training and saying, "Hey, I gotta meet with my trainer on Tuesday between 4 and 5:30," and that happens to fall on your team training, you need to focus on the team training because team comes first. Individual development is secondary. Now, that being said, I think if you want to get to the next level, you do need to add personal training. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes secondarily to the team. So look at your team schedule throughout the week and say, oh, I got training Monday with my team, Tuesday with my team, Wednesday with my team, a game on Saturday. Well, when do I have time to fill in my personal trainer? Well, that might be early in the morning. That might be late at night, whatever the case may be. But you should never put personal training ahead of team training. This is a good example. Ellie's coach was Rolly for a year, and then Adolfo, who's the director of La Roca, he would call me all the time. Matt, Ellie is doing too much. She's doing way too much. You're burning her out. And I said, Adolfo, I don't control my daughter. If she feels like she wants to train and her body tells her she wants to train, I'm going to let her train. But I said, I promise you, never, ever, ever, ever will her personal training conflict with your team training. And he goes, I love to hear that. That's all I care about. I said, but that being said, I, as a dad, I know my daughter and I know what she can and cannot do. And I monitor everything she does. And if I feel like her fitness isn't there or she's hitting a wall in the end of the game, then yeah, we got to tailor it back, and she needs to take that rest and relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time she was part of the developmental academy. The developmental academy with US Soccer was so ingenious because it was training more, playing less. So their criteria was, hey, they want 10 training sessions to one game. And that
Oh,
was
wow.
perfect because you train a lot more and less games. But when the games come, you better perform at a high level and you better be mentally sharp and then you better leave it all on the field. And that's why she got as good as she did because she trained her butt off, but it didn't hinder her ability to play and perform at those moments where she needed to in front of people. When
Mm-hmm.
she showed up at the showcases and there was 120 colleges all around the field, she came, she was mentally ready, she was physically ready, and she just said, hey, I'm going to leave it all on the field. And she did an amazing job at that. And I think that was a big reward for she pushed herself in trainings, she pushed herself in personal trainings, and she worked out with the fitness strength coach, and she ran with her mom crazy miles, but she was prepared that her body was ready when it mattered in the games. And I think a lot of kids now are like, oh, I want to guest play with this team and this team and this team and this team. There is an element of burnout. And games,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, you get burned out. And clearly, physically, you get burned out. So train more, play less. That's my big push. So
So you briefly mentioned, that her coach called you. So how, as far as since you're doing personal training, because one of the things that I always would be worried about is when you could tell that a player was told by a personal trainer that they might have to positionally put themselves in a certain position. So, how do you feel about, I mean, because honestly, that's up to the coach, I believe,
100%.
of the team.
100%.
So, what's your communication like as far as the coaches and making sure that you're not stepping on the team coach's toes as far as that goes? Because I know that there can be some overlap, and I know that it can be frustrating, when you're trying to tell a player, this is how we run our formation or how the team goes, and then the personal trainer kind of comes in and you want to make sure that they're not clashing.
Yeah, good question. So for every athlete that I currently train, I send them a questionnaire ahead of time. So the questionnaire is just, hey, who do you play for? What league? What position is your strength in their mind? And then
Mm-hmm.
I say, what do you want to play? What do you currently play? So I get a good idea of one, their level, two, who their coach is, what league they're playing on, and all those particulars. So currently today, I'm a LaRocca board member, and I also assistant coach my daughter's team. But the coaching side of me is going away in 2 months, which is great. I've served my time. But
Mm-hmm.
that's really where I want to be that impartial trainer where, hey, people are going to come with me and ask questions. What do you think about this team or this coach or that coach? They're all good. They're all good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are some better than others? Of course. But I don't want to sway one parent or kid in this league or with this club or that club because it really depends on what their aspirations are. I
Mm-hmm.
have my own opinion. I'm not going to give my own opinion or sway you one way or the other. I'm just going to tell you from where I sit how we managed to go through the process with my own kids. How did they get to where they want to be? I'm going to give that information. But parents need to figure that out on their own. And sometimes a kid is just like, hey, I just want to play with my friends. I want to
Mm-hmm.
get to a higher level, yes. But really, my focus today is I just want to be with my friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if they want some critical information about, hey, I really want to play a number 10, but on my team, I'm only playing a 6 or an 8, well, great. You need to have that conversation with your coach. I'm not going to step on your coach's toes, but I think, being a coach, that if a kid came in and, man, they were really working on their ball striking, because soccer is a game of scoring goals. If you
Mm-hmm.
worked on your ball striking, you were so good at hitting a ball, and every time you touch the ball, you're scoring a goal. My guess is the coach is going to say, "Yeah, you should be scoring more goals." So maybe you're not really a center back. You could be a goal scorer. Maybe they put you at the 10, but you have to put in the work to show your coach, not with words, but with your actions of how much you have improved to get to
Mm-hmm.
whatever spot you want. Because again, every coach has their own opinion of what they think you should be in terms of position. It's your job to change their mind. And the only way you
Mm-hmm.
can do that is on the field or in training sessions and saying, hey, coach, I really worked hard at being a number 10 or a number 2 or a number 9, whatever, and then prove it. And I think every coach is going to say, man, I really see your strengths. Yes, we do need a goal scorer. Let's try you there, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be. So I don't ever want to step on coaches' toes because they're going to be with them 4 training sessions a week. And here I'm only with them once or twice a week. So clearly the coach knows. And the coach is working with 18 players or 24 players. They have to manipulate where that kid is going to be, not just one random kid. He only wants to play a number 10. It's more of a challenge with the coach than a trainer. So I always defer to the coach. And sometimes if you don't see eye to eye, you got to have the conversation with the coach. And if you can't figure out the best situation for you, then maybe a different team within the same club or maybe a different club is your option. I don't know. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not for me to say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it definitely, I know, cuz I mean, I wasn't one of those players where I was like, I want to play forward. That
uh-huh,
wasn't me. I was
uh-huh.
total defender all the way.
Yes,
Like that's just my position and my personality when I'm on the field. But the coaches have to, like you said, they're dealing with the 18 other players,
yep,
the 11 players on the field, and so they have to figure out who fits where, and it may change from game to game depending on who you're playing tactically and where they need it. And so it's definitely hard for players to hear, that they're going to play in a certain position one day and maybe they have to switch to a different position in another game. And usually it's a tactical thing. So definitely talk to your coaches about it if you're confused and say, because a lot of times it's really that's just where I needed you to be at that time because I needed somebody to fill that gap and you were the best player to do that at that time. So they know your skill level compared to all the other players, and so maybe that is where they need you to play. So that's definitely something to think about, and again, if you have questions, talk to your coach about it, like you
100%.
said.
Yep.
Do you have anything else that you specifically want to say or anything that you want to talk about for your undeniable soccer or anything in general?
Yeah, I'm going to add to what you just said, and I'll give you a real life example. So my daughter's 12. We had an ECNL showcase this past weekend or 2 weekends ago in Arizona. In her mind, she's a number 10. Everyone's a number 10, right? In her mind, she's a number 10. Well, she starts as a number 6. And because the flow of the game, she goes from a number 6, then she plays a number 8, and then she plays a center back. And then, hey, we're down, we need a goal. She goes and plays a number 10. And then, hey, we're up, then she goes back to number 6. Now, did she complain? Does she frown? Does she say, that's not my spot? No, because any kid at any level playing soccer, you do not want to be pigeonholed at one spot. Because depending on your coach, depending on the level, depending on the program you're playing at, you want to be able to stay on the field. You want to be a versatile player. So take it. Coach says play number 2, go play number 2. A 4, go play number 4. Try to balance where you're going to be able to play, because if you are a soccer mind, you should be able to play anywhere, including goalie. Because a coach wants someone who can play any position, any given time of the game, because they do need to manage. And if you're able to play all 11 spots, man, more power to you. That's what you want. So that's my plug on that. Lastly, I'd say undeniable soccer. I want the best for any athlete in Utah, outside of Utah. I'm pushing hard and finalizing my virtual academy, which will go live here in the next month or so, which is ultimately an academy worldwide where you can log in, you can subscribe to my website, my Instagram, and you can download all these drills and really follow the technical skills that got my son where he is, my daughter where she is, and hopefully my youngest kid, she'll be playing at Manchester United, Theater of the Dreams. And that's what it's all about, is getting better every single day. But it's all about you putting in the time on your own with a trainer, with your team coach, and doing what you're good at and showing whomever is watching that you are a talent and they want you part of their program. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to come back to being a parent. So, the parent side of soccer, I know that, you've stepped into the role of being a coach and other things, but what advice could you give to parents of current players right now? Just any general advice.
Good question. Good question. Okay, so um, I told you I coached at La Roca. I'm a parent of La Roca kids. I am an assistant coach on a La Roca team. La Roca gets a bad rap. Okay. That being said, a lot of it is true. I'll be honest. We have crazy parents. They're very A personality. They think they know more than the referees. They think they know more than the coaches. And I think that's across the board with a lot of clubs. Now, some are better than others, but parents are crazy. And what I tell every parent that I come in contact with, the game doesn't matter. Any game you're in, it doesn't really matter. It's all about your kid playing the game, loving the game, doing it with a smile on their face. Are they going to make mistakes? Yes. Are they going to miss wide open goals? Yes. Are they going to miss PKs? All the time. But if you are a really good parent and you can sit there and enjoy the game and not worry about the coach yelling or the other parents yelling or the other sidelines yelling, and just enjoy the game, it's better for you. It's better for your kid. It's better for your marriage. It's better for everything because it is just a game. And I'll tell you, I'm stepping away from my assistant coach role next year. But guess what I'm going to be? I'm going to be a parent coach because I'm going to sit with my parents and I'm going to say, shut up. Just sit back and enjoy the game. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. They're 12-year-old kids. They're not going to
Mm-hmm.
win the World Cup. And I think, again, I've been there. I've been frustrated at the coach. I've been frustrated with my own kids. But in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. And if you get to the level where college coaches are sitting on the sidelines, you know what they don't want to see? They don't want to see crazy parents. And if they look down the sideline, they're like, oh my gosh, whose dad is that? I'm not going to recruit that kid because that guy is crazy and it's going to hurt your kid. And I promise you, you don't want to be that dad who hurts your kid's ability to go to whatever school they want to go to because you're a loudmouth. I mean, that's the truth of it. And I'm a pretty loud guy, and now I put a camera in front of my face and take snapshots, and I can't really yell through the camera, so it helps me. And I usually find the corners or behind the net, so I get really good photos of my kids coming toward goal. And that's what I've done. Now, I'm not going to say that's for every parent, but just remember it's just a game. Relax, enjoy the game, love your kid. Now, when you're in the car after the game and you want to have a conversation with your son or daughter, totally fine, but that's closed doors. And I think that's very important. But just let your kid enjoy the game. That's what I would leave because I've been there. I've been the loudmouth. I've yelled. I've done all the bad things, but you got to learn from it and grow because you don't want to be that parent. And there's a lot of that parent everywhere in Utah, outside of Utah. Just remember, it's just a game and enjoy the game.
Yeah, it's definitely a good lesson. I know that when I was before we got our VO a few years ago, I was doing like live stream stuff, so it definitely, like you said, kept me from yelling. Not that I would do very much of it,
Yep.
but it would definitely keep me more quiet, and I was commentating on the game or whatever, so I definitely had to be more honed in on what was actually going on and giving information versus focusing on what wasn't going on or whatever, and
True.
things like that. So it definitely, find a, like you said, find something else. I know that there was another guy that I interviewed, and he gave out lollipops to
Mm-hmm.
people.
Mm-hmm.
So they would
So
go
true.
have to suck on a lollipop and not allowed to talk, basically, because you have a lollipop, kind of a
Yep.
thing. So
Fill
it
your mouth with
definitely,
something. That's true.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely. Um, it's it's definitely, I mean, just I mean, and like you said, it happens all over the world, and unfortunately it's happened at all levels, like
Yes.
we just saw with that debacle with the US men's national team.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely, I mean, that put a bad stigma on parents and youth parents,
Yep.
so you
Yep.
don't want to be one of one of those problem families, most
And
definitely. I
and
mean,
and and, and I think you go to tryouts, you would try out for a team because of the coach and the team. So trust the coach. You went to tryouts, you spent the money to be part of that team. So trust the coach. Now, it might work out, it might not work out, but still you trusted the coach and you did all the work. I'm assuming ahead of time. So if you make that team, trust the coach, trust the process, and stick with them. Now, again, every year there's tryouts. Every year you can change your mind. So do
mhm,
your homework ahead of time. But once you're involved with the team, trust the coach, trust the process, have communication, and move on if you're not happy. But it's more than just a game. It is teaching kids about being part of a team and the adversity that you have to go through. That's what it's all about. And some people can't handle that, and maybe team sports not for you. But ultimately, it is about a coach, your teammates, trying to attain whatever goal is that your team put forth for you, and that's what it's all about. So,
mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely, if you're one of those helicopter parents that are literally sitting on the sideline holding your kid's hand the whole entire time,
mhm.
you may not see the progress that they're making because you're watching it the whole entire time. But if you are there at the beginning and then you're not watching all of the practices, which a lot of coaches have closed practices, and
Yep.
I personally think for players after a certain age, it's definitely the best way because they're not looking over to their parents for reassurance or making sure that they're, doing it right. They need the opportunity to feel the space that they're able to try things and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and grow as people. And but if you're a parent and you start, you see where they're at, in the summer when the team starts, but then you leave for 6 months and you don't really watch, and then you come back, hopefully if the coaches are doing it right, they're, they have progressed and they have gotten better from where they were at the beginning, and that's how you can see that progression. But if you're there holding their hand every day, you're probably not going to be able to see it as much as somebody who, you know, stepped away for a minute. So that's something to think about also, is are you hovering too much as a parent,
True.
because you don't want to. I don't think you should.
No, and
Coming
I
from
agree
my
because
parent perspective.
you're right. Because kids are going to grow on their own, and they do need that level of individualism, and they need to grow and figure stuff out on their own. Because if they always have the mom and dad hovering over top, they're not going to grow individually. They're just going to do whatever you or whomever says to do it, and that's not good for growth or development. So, agreed.
And it doesn't necessarily build confidence in the coach either.
Yep.
So it kind of says, that you have to be there to monitor what's going on, and hopefully, like you said, you trust the coach and you trust the process.
Yep.
And so you definitely, I mean, even if you're staying at practice, sit in your car. Don't sit on the sidelines. So
100%. 100%.
I mean, hopefully, you can see from your car, if you're worried about your kid getting injured in practice, which occasionally does happen. It happens less frequently than people think, but
Agreed.
accidents do happen, and it's definitely good to be there if you feel like you need to be. But I definitely feel like there's a lot of parents who still go and sit at practice. I mean, I personally had a parent walk in the middle of one of my trainings and yelled at his daughter, and I
Oh
basically
no.
after that had to be like, hey, nope, nope,
You're
not
forbidden
happening
from now
anymore.
on. Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, it definitely distracts, and like you said, it's all about confidence, and the only way for them to build confidence is to do it on their own, because I mean, I can't give my kids confidence on the field. They have to build it on their own, and so they, unfortunately, my husband is one of their coaches, and
Uh-huh.
I'm my daughter's coach, so it's a little
Uh-huh.
bit different. But I mean, my daughter always makes the funny joke because I'll say something about parents, and she's like, well, you're still here, and I'm like, well, I'm your coach right now, I'm not
Exactly.
technically your mom. So
Uh-huh. Different hat on. That's correct. Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
for
Yes.
sure, it's definitely difficult when you're a parent coach. So I've been trying to juggle that
Uh-huh.
and figure that one out, but
Good.
it's
Good for
been
you.
fun.
Good for you.
It's been fun. But is there anything else, any advice that you want to give players or parents or coaches out there?
So I'm gonna share a story because it pertains to your husband. Um, and I can't remember. I don't think you were there, but so Kyle played for Sparta, and his I believe it was his junior year. Sparta made regionals, and Justice was like, "Hey, I'd love to bring you, Kyle. We're gonna have a roster of 21 that goes up to Boise." And so Kyle came
Mm-hmm.
home and he goes, "Hey, mom and dad, what do you think?" And I was like, "Oh, we're going." And Kyle's like, "Well, there's 21. They're only going to roster 18 every day. I might not play at all." And I said, "I agree, but we're going to go. It's a good experience for you to play up 1 year, number one,
Mm-hmm.
and to be part of Justice and his um, game management. It's gonna do wonders." So Justice very open, and he said, "Hey, I'm carrying 21. I only can roster 18 every game. It's going to rotate. We're going to have, hopefully we have 5 or 6 games in the regionals. So I need fresh legs." So we go up to Boise. Game one, Kyle, I believe he dresses, did not play at all. So be it.
Mm-hmm.
That's coach's decision. Game two, he did not dress. Totally fine. Game three, Kyle dressed. He played maybe 5 minutes in the first half, 7 minutes in the second half. He scored a goal. And that was, they were going to advance anyhow, is what it is, but they advanced. So they took Thursday off. Friday, Kyle starts in the game. And he was so excited because he got rewarded for the Wednesday's game. Scored a goal. He didn't play that much, maybe 20, 22 minutes, something like that, but they won. Then they get to the semifinal game. Kyle plays a lot more minutes. There was some fatigue. Goalie goes down. They had to literally fly a new goalkeeper up from Salt Lake up to Boise because we didn't have a goalkeeper because we carried 21. And so that all worked out. And they ended up winning regionals up there. Kyle had a great time. I think we calculated he might have played 70 minutes in 6 games. But the experience he gained, the knowledge he gained from sitting on the bench, listening to Justice, watching and just waiting for his opportunity to get on the field, if it ever came, was invaluable. Because as a kid, you want to do everything you can to get on the field. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you have to bide your time and you have to wait and you have to be patient. But I'm telling you, when you get the opportunity, you got to take it and run with it. And if you do, good coaches are going to reward you for you converting your opportunities. And you only can blame yourself. If you go on the field and you're scared, you're nervous, and you don't take that opportunity and run with it, you made your own bed and you're going to find yourself on the bench. And that's just the way life is. And I'm grateful for Justice and Kyle to this day. He was my favorite coach. He was hard on me, but he kept me accountable. And I knew if I worked hard, he was going to reward me. If I didn't, yeah, I'm sitting on the bench because he had all these other kids that were just as good. And he gave them opportunities if they did it in training. And that's the critical piece. And it goes back to my question, or your question you asked me before about personal training versus training. You show up to train with your team. You're prepared. You're ready. You leave it all on the field. You're going to get opportunities. If you don't and you choose to go the other direction, you're only blaming yourself. So there you have it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's a great experience. And it was I loved that whole regionals it was fun.
It was fun. And
And it's,
tremendous kids on that team.
it was full of a lot of talent, and it was really fun to see where they've all been able to go and the amazing things that they've been able to do and accomplish because they wanted it. It wasn't anything that their parents wanted.
Nope.
And that's always something very important. You know, you as a parent can introduce your kid to the sport, but if they don't love it, you can't force them to love it and to keep going, and it's just gonna cause problems. But I mean, it's been a great run for those boys. I mean, it was so fun.
Truly,
and
you're right.
and winning regionals is a huge deal. So, and it's not something that, since we're from Utah in the West, for those of you that don't know, usually it's like California, I mean, what is it, Oregon or Washington, like Nevada sometimes. Usually those are the states that win regionals. So it's very, very limited that teams from other states do. And so we've had a few Utah boys teams and clubs that have won regionals in the last little while. So it's been kind of fun to see the progression of soccer in our state, and it's growing. So that's been fun to see over the years, the progression of that. But I don't have any other questions for you right now. I'm sure in the future I will, but if you don't have anything else, then I'm good. I'm great.
I appreciate the opportunity, Katie, and thanks for letting me come on to your podcast and share a little bit about Matt Walbruch and Undeniable Soccer and my wonderful kids who've loved the sport, and they've grown and they've developed, and they're great teammates and they're great players, and I hope they can reach their dreams above and beyond where they are today. So thank you for the time.
Yeah, of course. And it's been fun to watch your kids do the things that they've done. I mean, we've kept an eye on Kyle and to see where Ellie's going. And then I've seen your post about Avery and what she's been doing over at LaRocca.
She's the future. She's the future. Uh-huh.
And I don't want to take anything away from your older kids, but and I don't know if there's any truth to it, but there's a lot of people who say usually the youngest does a lot more.
Oh, she's more naturally gifted than my other two. And I mean, she had a ball at her feet when she was 1 and 2, always going to wherever we were. It's just naturally that's going to happen. So we'll see.
I think
we'll see what
I
the future
think
holds.
I think with younger kids, when they're on the sidelines and they're watching their older siblings, they want to do what they do, and so they get exposed to it earlier
Yep.
because their siblings are already doing it. So we'll have to see where Avery goes, and wish her luck with her career as well.
Agreed. Thank you.
But for those of you that are listening, we will have links to Undeniable Soccer in the show notes, so you can find Matt's information for Undeniable Soccer in there. And if you're interested in personal training, you can get the information there if you're local. And then, like he said, he's going to be having his online
Virtual
academy.
Academy. You got it. Coming soon. Coming soon.
Yeah. So follow him on Undeniable Soccer on his Instagram as well, so that you can get information when that comes out. So thank you, Matt, for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. Take care.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for listening to that interview with Matt. Matt, thank you so much for jumping on. You're always welcome. And hopefully we can get Kyle on here one of these days. So I know he's been super busy, but I'm excited to hear his story as well. After I watched him for several years playing under Justice and getting to know you guys. So love the Walbruchs. Shout out to you guys. You guys are great. And thank you, Walbruchs, for the support. I know you guys have been supporting me and love to support you guys back. And so thank you so much. If you guys are interested in his Undeniable Soccer, I put the link to his Instagram in the show notes, so you guys can find him through Undeniable Soccer on Instagram. Reach out to him on Instagram, see if he can work something in for you if you are interested in that personal training. And once he has his academy information up and running, I'll make sure that I share that, but go give them a follow. He's got tons of videos up of just some mini or exercises that he does with some of the players. So you can go onto the Instagram feed and see kind of some of the things that he does in sessions and things that your players could maybe learn and grow from. He also does a fun thing where he does an undeniable player of the week. So if he has a player that he's been training, then, he kind of does a little spotlight with that. So that's something fun for your kids to look forward to if you're also interested in being a part of the program. You guys, thank you so much for listening today. Be sure to give me a 5-star review, share the podcast. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, have a great day. Thanks for kicking it with me. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at kickitwithkatie_podcast _ between all the words. You can reach out to me with questions at kickitwithkatiepod@gmail.com. I also have a feature with SpeakPipe where you can leave me your own voicemail message if you want to be featured on the podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.